What's going on, guys? We are back again. Today what we are going to be doing is a dual cam mod for our 2014 Ram 2500. This would be for the cargo camera and the backup camera. The parts list that we have today would be our tailgate jumper, which is right here. That would be part number 6809 6415 AD. Right there. You can get that at any dealer. You can even get it online in order to get this piece. So this would actually be what would be in the tailgate. This one here is also the jumper that goes for the tailgate as well. The main reason why I decided to do that is because this connector here, this one here, will actually match up, and that'll go up behind the tail light for the high mount stop lamp. Right here I have some insulated wiring. It is a 2-wire with the shield. Always recommend doing that with any type of video or anything like that that's sensitive to interference. This is really nice little wire. I got this on Amazon. It's 18 all-wire gauge times 2, 25 feet. It's a little bit long, but we can at least trim off what we need. Then I got an 8-way connector here. Just got that off of Amazon. Just a dual 8-pin. So that way I can run this in to the driver's side side panel that goes through with that connector, and just run it alongside of it instead of trying to tap into it. You can run it through the original connector if you wanted to, but I just figured for this, doing it this way, it would be easier. And then lastly, I ended up getting a pigtail for an RA4 VP4 radio. Just going to use this as a donor, pull out a few wires in order to backpin it into my original harness that's in the truck. And this one here, this is a radio. This is a VP4 with nav out of a 2017 Ram. The important part is that you want to be able to get it with the part number that ends in 0661AE, or any type of whatever number at the end. You just need to make sure that you get it out of those years, because that actually enables the functionality for the dual camera setup in the older trucks. Also, another one is that if you have the 1711 or 1741 software, you would be able to check that in your 8.4 radio, and that would actually be able to do it. And then you would need to have the alpha OBD. Now there is a couple extra wires that we are going to have to run. It's going to be the CAN bus CBC3 that enables the camera. You're going to need to run the switchable power, and then an external ground, just to make sure that everything works right. So 6 wires. So we're going to be using not all of these. This is an extra connector for that. And I just figure I'll leave it in there just in case if I want to run something else extra at a later point in time. This one here, yet again, also has the 8 wires. I'm just going to leave those in. But this is actually the right length, and this will actually bring it out by the C-pillar in the back of the truck. And then I can just route this along the side and do it that way. So I will go ahead and I will get set up, and I will show you what's going on as far as where we're going to start with the third brake light. Okay, so we're in the back of the truck right now. The main reason why I'm deciding to go with the third brake light, which I actually did end up converting it from the original incandescent to the LED. It does have the integrated camera, which is right there, and I do have a 5th wheel trailer. So I just needed to be able to get that so I can actually see, just for ease of use. We're gonna start with taking the third brake light out with the 2 screws, and I'll show you the connectors that are in the back. Okay, so what we're going to start with, after I get a little water out of the way, there's 2 Phillips head screwdrivers, one on either side. Let's take those out. And this just kind of pulls right out. Now, if you haven't removed this already recently, It may stick a little bit and you may have to pop it out. But you just kind of want to pull it, lay it back here. Let's actually unplug that and I can give you a close-up. Okay guys, now that I have this out, the part number that you're going to need for the center high mount stop lamp with the camera is 6816 3937 AJ. I don't know if you guys can see that. See if I can. There we go. That's the number there. So what we have, now this is the same plug as what your incandescent would be. And you have your camera connector right here, which is your 6-pin that's down in there. So you can get a Dorman unit. They have it, but they don't offer the camera that's in here. So now that we have this out of the way, let's actually start routing the tailgate wiring and the jumper harness in order to be able to hook this up. But this is just basically that. You are going to need to use some type of software to enable the LED third brake light, so that way you don't get any error codes, and also for the dual cam. So I'll set this up here and start running the wire. You just want to remove this plastic piece that was on here that would go into the tailgate, so that way you can sneak it through here a little bit. I want to try to leave this on here. There might be a random hole that I might be able to snap that in to help hold it in place. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to cut this connector off here and then just do an overlay. Okay, so now that that part's in, let's go ahead and hook this in place with it. And you can kind of see what's going on. That's in, quick and easy. We can just tuck that right inside there with this, because we're not going to need this at this point. There we go. Then we're just left with this and this. So now what you can do is plug this connector back in, and then take your camera plug, line that up accordingly right here with the slot with the little tab that's in the top. Okay, now that we're in there, you can actually take this and just set it up here, because we may need to reference these wires here to make sure that we choose the right pins. So it should all be right on the other side, but it never hurts to double check yourself, because you don't really want to wire anything backwards. Okay, so now that we're back here on the driver's side rear of the truck, what we're going to want to do is pull this down, and then we should be able to just feel around up in here. Kind of give it a little pull. And right here is our connector. What we need to make sure of is that we route it above the side curtain airbag. You really don't want to get that in the way, especially if you get in an accident, because it can really mess up the deployment. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to find a good spot. come up and around the back of it. Right there. Okay. Now they have a pretty good straight shot there. Ouch. What we're going to do is we're just going to push this back, and then it'll just route itself on the top side of this side curtain airbag that's right here. But I'm going to leave this guy out so that way I can cut this end off, and then I can run the wiring up to the front, and then we're going to route it over into the radio eventually. So yeah, let's actually run it from here up to the driver's side opening the dash, and I'll show you what we're going to have to get access to do that. So the next portion is to remove this cover. We're also going to have to pull this down as well, so that way we can route our wiring down to this A-pillar. To be able to run it in through into the dash. So this is pretty much about as far as we're going to have to remove everything for the headliner. You don't really need to be overly invasive with this. We are going to be running a wire out underneath the hood and tied into the PDC. I will get the wiring diagram around, and I will show you how I'm going to mimic the OEM wiring so that way it operates correctly. Okay, so here's the wiring diagram, just to kind of give a brief overview as what's going on. See if I can zoom this in for you guys, that way you can actually kind of see what's going on. So what we have is right here. This would be the C7 connector out of the front PDC. What we're going to do is we're going to run that out, because that actually runs back to then feed the camera. So this would be run relay control, and that actually splices in. So what I have this looked up as is a 2017 Ram 2500. That way the wiring diagram is very similar to what this is. Now this would be the premium backup camera system. So you want to look at that off of there, and you would run that actually into the truck cab because it does splice. It goes back to our CHMSL lamp for the video. Now this is the 6 pins that we're going to be working with. Pin 1 is your ground. Pin 2 is your LIN bus, which is the CBC3. Pin 3 is the relay run control, which is the power that we was just talking about. 4, video shield 2, which is going to be part of that shielded wire kit, as well as the signal and common. Those two, actually these 3 wires here are all going to be running together. The LIN bus CBC3, let's follow this up through. This actually splices into something, but if you have an older truck that doesn't have this or the wiring connectors, you won't actually see that. A lot of what's going on with the older trucks, it doesn't have some of these connectors that are up by the headliner, so we're just going to kind of bypass a lot of that. So let's actually see. Okay, so it would be an orange and dark blue wire that comes down to the C5 connector, which is at the body control module. So I will click on this just to kind of give you guys a quick look. Now this is going to be the black connector. It is going to be the 48 cavity connector. Now, it only shows standard cab. It doesn't really matter. They're all the same. But I can show you right where it's located. So obviously we're at the driver's door. We're looking at the middle. So we're going to have one here, another one down here. It's going to be this middle fat guy right here in the middle. So that way you can just pull that out of the BCM and you can actually back splice into that. So I will get under the truck and kind of show you where it's at. But with these newer trucks, they actually have the connector that are wired, pre-wired for all this to happen. It would actually be this connector that's right here up in the truck that would already have some of the wiring that would be there. And then that would run down underneath, and then it would run into that connector that's out here, and then also down on the headliner as well. On the newer trucks, there is another connector over here for your power and ground, I do believe. We aren't going to be messing around over here. Everything that we're going to do is going to be all on the driver's side. So what we will do, go back a page, is we're going to mimic what the pinouts are here. So this would go into the radio. I can zoom in here and show you. So this would be your back camera. It would have all those wires there that would pin back into the radio. So 31, 32, and 33. If you have the dual zone, if you have a dual camera, you are actually going to be pinning into 24, 25, and 26. These aren't necessarily labeled on the back of the connectors for in here, but that's why I grabbed this. So that way I actually have a good set of donor wires that have the appropriate pins. That way we can just populate them as needed. So the goal is basically power, ground, and CBC3. I'm just going to be splicing into those three. So LIN bus, relay, control, and ground. And that's where they're going to go. Now, if you do want to be a little extra about it, it's just a regular ground loop. It does have multiple other wires that goes in with it. But if you wanted to, it is actually right here, right behind the instrument cluster. And you can just tie it in there if you want to. I'm probably, just to kind of keep it simple, right where one of these dash bolts go in. Either that or maybe the ground that's down here at the bottom of the C-pillar. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but right down here in the bottom of the C-pillar, there is a ground lug that you can actually use that's behind the parking brake. So that is probably the route I'm going to go. Ground is ground for the most part. It's not really going to hurt anything as long as you have a good clean connection. There is another one right here that I can see right next to the star connectors behind the headlight switch into the bracketry that goes onto the dash. You can use that one there as well. Okay, so now we opened up the connector a little bit to get more access to the wiring into this connector here, because we're not really going to need this anymore. So I have my 3-pin here for this. So this would be for the camera. This is your shield wire. I did go ahead and strip this back a little bit just to kind of save some time, because, you know, there's that. So we will go ahead and start putting it into this connector up here, and then we'll then run it forward on the truck. So go ahead and splice this in. What you're going to want to do is one wire at a time. Reference your wiring diagram just to make sure that you have the pins appropriately set, so that way you don't get anything confused. I do recommend some weatherproof shrink wrap. Just kind of cut off the lengths that you would need and just put that in with your wiring that way. So this is kind of a modular system. It is going to disconnect up in the top behind where the third brake light is. It's also going to disconnect up here on the driver's side end cap for the dash. So at least if you do need to remove or service something, it is kind of modular, so that way you're not kind of stuck with these wires that are just ran through the dash. So I'll cut off some shrink wrap. I go probably about 1 inch to 1.25 inches in length. to do enough cover between the two wires. What I like to do for my crimps, for my splices, I will feed the heat shrink up. I do something that's called a NASA twist. So you want to exit first, grab either end, you will twist these together. I found that actually gives a really good solid connection between the two. And if you wanted to, you could actually solder this if desired, but I don't always do it. Now, if it is something that does get a lot of movement and such, I will probably solder that. But for this application, I'm not going to. The shrink wrap will actually help hold that together as well. So just kind of slide that up over, just like that. Take your, you can either use a little heat gun, or you can use like a little pocket torch or a lighter and shrink that down. So let me shrink it down, and we'll just get going to the rest. Okay, so now that we have all of these done, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut these two, because this is the extra connector. It would be the green and the orange and the purple with the, looks like might be green. We're just going to cut those off and get them out of the way, and we'll just wrap them back just for later use if we need to. What I actually have here too is Tessa brand cloth tape. It's really good for the anti-chafe on the wiring. Sticky on one side, smooth on the other. I'm just going to go ahead, when I wrap these back, I'm just going to put this together in a nice bundle, so that way it's kind of held together nice and smooth. That way it's not really a whole bunch of random wiring. So I will get these taped back and wrap this bundle. Okay, now that they're wrapped, it's in a good little bundle. I'm actually going to just about every 10 inches or so, just tape a little bit of this wiring together with the three extras. So the black is our ground, red is our power, and the white is our CBC3 bus. So that way we can kind of route everything through, and it just doesn't get random all up and behind this paneling. So I will move the stuff that we need here, and then I'll tuck it in and I will put this back and get the wire up front so that way we can get started with that. Okay, so they're all wrapped. I do have the ends here, 3 wires here, 3 here, so that gives our 6. Then we're just going to go ahead and run it up to the front and just tuck it. Okay, so we have it here ran. This is just up around the B pillar here. I'll just go ahead and tuck this in behind, get it around. We have to manipulate this a little bit just to kind of get it to lay appropriately, to get your headliner to lay back down. There's that, primarily just on the corner here. And then move it around the front and show you what we got up there. Okay, so now that we have it routed from the back up through here, I want to get this, I want to tuck it up around the corner of the headliner, like so. And then just continue to route the wiring down into here. All right, now that we're out here, like I said, we're just going to route this down. To here. And we'll remove our trim panel at the front. One thing we can do is get this put back up here a little bit just to help hold everything. I'm going to pull your door opening molding, pull that back, and then get yourself a panel popper so you can gain access to remove this panel right here. Just get something kind of wide and flat. Pull this out the rest of the way. Okay. All right, so now what we have is we have this here. This is that connector that you could use if you wanted to. You could buy the pins and add on to that. I'm not going to get into all that. That's why I got this connector here. I'm just going to stick that right next to this guy. And yeah, we'll have a similar result, but a little bit more versatility. So I did cut it a little long here. That way I made sure that I didn't run short to get into here. So I will go ahead and start placing this connector in line so that way everything can splice together nicely. Right, so I think what we can do for consistency, because this has the release tab on the top. Let's zoom in a little bit for you. Since this has the release tab on the top, I'm going to follow suit, do the same thing with this guy. Just go ahead and just stick it in there just like that with these. So what we can do, start trimming back. Let's get these wires opened up. So when you strip this back, you're going to see that it's got that woven look to it. Basically, you just want to unbraid it. Kind of like that. once you have it around, pull it off pretty much to one side. Kind of get it, put it in a neat thing like that. And then just kind of twist it all together. And then with this, just take a little razor knife and just very gently just like a cotton wrap. You don't want to go too crazy with the pressure because you don't want to nick the covering for these inner wires. Just kind of do the same thing. Get everything pulled back. Get it all off to one side, just like that. Get yourself a little razor knife. Cut that off. Throw it away. Now you have your 3 wires. Fairly neat. And you'll be ready to go. Then what I like to do, because I have some of the extra here left, I will be able to duplicate on this pretty close to what this would be. So pins 1 through 5, and then 6 to 10, but we're not going to be using 2 of them, so we're only going to be using 6 of the wires. So we'll set this up just like I did on the back when I cut this off. Okay, so we did our first one. Did heat shrink that before I turned the camera back on, but we're going this way. So this would be your red, this would be the white, this would be the camera shield, this would be the yellow, and then this is the ground. Probably might be a good way to re-show the NASA twist here. So what you want to do, there we go. Let's put it at an X. Grab both ends. Just kind of neatly do that. On this side. Same thing. So that way, it's nice and smooth. Okay, so we have this portion here taken care of. As far as sticking our wiring together, we need to work on doing the other half. But before we decide to get into doing all that, I actually want to run the power from underneath the hood and bring it into the cab. And then also we will work next to get the CBC3, and we're going to pull that and splice into the back of that. So I will route the wire from underneath the hood and get that. Now there is a excuse me, there is a spot that is up in here, which I will show you guys here momentarily. So right in here, behind this harness, there's a portion of the firewall that you can go through and you can get access to run your power wire through. So I will feed that through and I'll be back. Okay guys, went through and got all this wired in and put together for the harness. This is the connector that we put in. Just followed through. I ran the 12 volt switchable source that goes out underneath the hood. Our white wire is our CAN CBC3. Black wire is obviously our ground. So I just ran through this off camera, ended up doing the shielded wiring harness to go over to the radio, so that way we don't have any issues there. So all I have to do now is tuck this down inside, and then we can remove the center console. Not going to really worry about showing you guys how to do that. A couple of my other videos, we did do the dual zone automatic temperature control from the manual temp control single zone, and also did the floor console conversion. So if you guys want to look and see how to do that from my other two videos, you guys can definitely do that. But we're not going to get into that on this one. We're just basically going to get our wiring through, get it pinned in to the radio for our new radio, and I'll show you how to do that here once I get everything apart and this routed. Okay guys, we got the power wire ran through our firewall here. Right up here, let's move this harness a little out of the way, which doesn't really look like I'm going to be able to. But right there, as you can see right next to my pointer finger, that is the connector that we're going to need to come off of the body control module. So you're just going to want to take your finger, push in on the little locking clip, and then you just want to roll it up, and then it should just come right out towards you. You're going to want to fold this down so you can kind of look at it. So if I can get you a good angle here. There we go. Now you can see that there's a gray right here on top with a black. They actually just hold in place with a little tab right here up off of my thumb. Let's see if I can zoom in, get a little better view for you. Okay. So, yeah. You're going to pull this down on whichever connector it is. I have to look and double check here. You always want to make sure you get the right one. So that way we can depin and then we can splice into the LIN bus CBC3. So let me see what we can do here. Okay. See if we can find an orange and dark blue before we completely pull this out. Looks like that might be the one. Because that's an orange and white. Okay. So we're going to pull the gray portion out. Okay, so we do have it started. And then it just slides out just like that. Once you get it started, usually you can kind of grab onto it and slide it. This is tricky. Oh. There we go. So right There, looks to be our only pin on this side. This is our dark blue and orange. What you're going to do is you're going to get a little straight pick or a little depinning tool, and you're just going to depress on that just a little bit. And then what we're going to do is we're going to deskin this a little bit, so that way we can actually put our white wire in with that, so that way it gets a good feed. All right. I have a little depinning tool here. Just going to take this. And you just press in. I think I got it to move. Problem is there's not really enough room to actually get to this two-handed. So you have to be kind of careful and patient. There we go. It is out. All right. I will get things around and I'll show you what it looks like once we get this stripped back. Okay, now that we have the Lin CBC 3 wire set in place, I did the splice right here off of our white wire. All we have to do now is just set the pin into the connector and make sure that it is properly seated. Okay, now that we have that in, now we just have to take our connector and slide it back into our BCM. Just like that. Now that we have that done, all that's left is to pull the radio and exchange it and run our 3 wires for the camera feed, the return, and the shielding. After that, the 12-volt source underneath the hood is our other one. So let's go ahead and get the radio replaced and get that installed. So pull the console and show you how to run the pins for the other. Okay guys, now that we have everything pretty well situated to get to the radio, to get that out, that's actually our next step. I went ahead and I depinned our donor connector and got 2 of these with the coated, and because this already had a backup camera with the other unit, I went ahead and I got one that was the bare camera shield wire. So what we're going to do is pull this radio out, get the connectors disconnected, and put these 3 wires in place, so that way we can start doing the secondary video for the radio. It's just 4 7mm screws. Set them in a safe place. Gently pull your radio out. And then we're going to have some Fokker connectors. I'll move you around so that way you can see the back side of the radio and see what it looks like. Okay, now that we're on the back side of the radio, you can see a little bit of what we have going on here with these connectors. So basically what we're going to get to is this bigger connector in the back here. But first we have to remove the USB, the 2 Fokker connectors, and then the antenna, so that way we can get that out and replace the radio. So let's go ahead and get that started. Had some technical difficulties there, so I had to reposition it again. And this one is just a simple swing lock with a little catch tab. That'll just pull right out just like that. So now with the radio out of the way, what we're going to need to do is route the wire and bring it up into this portion here, so that way we can tap into these wires here. And then we got to find our connector numbers or pinout numbers in order to fit it in the appropriate slot. So I will go ahead and get that moved and routed, and then I will pin out these wires. Now with the camera shield wire, you don't necessarily have to worry about doing anything too crazy with that. This did have electrical tape that was run on that before I stripped it open. I'm actually just going to go ahead and run a piece long ways to kind of cover this up like it was originally. And then once I get them spliced on this, I will actually do a twist on those before I connect it. So I just kind of go pretty quick, pretty easy, lengthwise. Pull the wire straight. Just kind of tack it in place a little bit. Give it a little fold. And then you just kind of want to roll it around. I'm not sure why they do this, but I figure if they did it, I might as well do it too, just to make sure it's right. It doesn't have to be super tight, super crazy, just basically enough to kind of cover what you have. I will do a little bit of wrap with that chafe tape, and I will tape it in with this harness here on that, so that way everything kind of goes together cohesively as one whole unit. Same thing as before. It's kind of like a house wire in a way. Has like that paper, other stuff in there. You just gotta peel that back and get it out of the way. If you guys have ever done any type of house electrical, similar concept. Also, the neater you are and the smoother that you actually make this joint, the less chance there is to actually have the wire poke out through the shrink wrap. I have had that happen on occasion, so you just kind of need to keep that in mind. just to be careful, so that way it doesn't short out or create any other problems after the initial installation. Because sometimes something like this can really leave you guessing, wondering what the heck happened. All right, so one more, at least for inside. But while we are doing this, before I put it all back together, I will do the alpha OBD section, which that does have multiple walkthroughs that you can kind of see there too. I can give you guys a quick link for some of the lists of functional changes that you can do with alpha OBD if needed, or you guys can just post a comment and I will share the link. Okay, so now that they are taken care of, shrunk, we'll just give this a nice twist. Now with the shrink wrap, it may take a little extra effort to kind of get that to do a twist, but you can get it. You want approximately one twist, I don't know, per 3/4 inch, I guess, just to make sure that there's no interference. But once you get that down, now if you do more, like mine's a little tighter, if you do decide that you want to do more, that's okay too. If you want to loosen them up a little bit, you can just kind of wiggle it and they will kind of spread themselves out a little bit more consistently. But yeah, so there's that. Looks good to me. All right, so now we need to get these 2 pins in and this 3rd pin in, so that way we can hook it into here. So I will refer to the wiring diagram. It's 24, 25, and 26 on this one. You just need to associate the right pin for the secondary video on the feed and the return. Okay, so you don't need to pull it all the way out. Just kind of get it up so it sticks up about 1/4 inch. Flip it around. I may actually have to pull this out the rest of the way just so I can kind of see. It doesn't really want to cooperate to go in. Sometimes they can be a little difficult, but usually you don't have to pull these out all the way. For some reason on this one, I think I'm going to have to. It's pin 24. So pin 24 is your camera signal. Pin 25 would be your camera return, whereas what they're saying in the wiring diagram that I have is video common. 25. 26 is the camera shield. Okay. They're all in place. Just gently take that, clip your red block connector in, and then what I'm going to do I'm going to wrap a little bit of tape around this section here just to help isolate. And then I will actually cloth tape this back here a little bit more. So onto the original harness. So just a couple nice wraps. Just like that. Like I said, just enough to cover it. Doesn't have to be fancy. And then this one, I will get this set in place. I'll give it a couple wraps with my cloth tape. All right. So now that that's taken care of, now we can actually put our new radio in and give it a quick test before we decide to fully install this. That way, if we have to change any wiring, anything like that, then we know this is, the best time. Okay, guys, so we have everything done with the Alpha OBD. I do have a hot wire installed. The ground is installed. All of the wiring is in. I just need to basically reassemble it, but just as a quick test, I did make the changes, like I said. Here we have the cargo camera. Click that. There it is. It's a picture of my roof. I can switch it back, and I can get the rear mount camera. Go back there. So we have a successful installation of the dual view. I'll get some driving around pictures or video of this here later on. I can add that in. I might even end up just kind of showing you how it works to back up to my fifth wheel. So I guess this kind of concludes our installation at this point, and see you guys next time.